Hello Facebook Live. It's Marilyn Devonish here from transformationstm.com. Just finished the rather epic Tarot Tuesday, so did 12 readings for that today. So if you signed up for a reading, the video is now live. If you wanted to go back and see which card I pulled for you and what this month and the rest of the year has in store. Just a quick heads up that in 20 minutes we go live with the teleseminar and online webinar for the Mental Health Awareness Month. I just thought I'd do something to kick that off. And the subject of that one today is from suicidal to living a joyful life. Of course, not the most cheerful of subjects, but that's what Mental Health Awareness Week and Month is all about. And so going to be sharing with you some tips and strategies and ideas. Thank you for the questions that I've had in. What I've done with many of those questions, I've incorporated those into what I'm actually going to be talking about. Some of the standalone questions, which techniques did I use to turn, which technique did I use to turn my life around? So I'll answer that as a standalone. What's the next one? My favorite tip for changing my favorite tip for changing your life, that was another one. What would I people off, a lot of these is asking about that kind of things I'd recommend that would do, what tips and ideas do I have for turning things around. So what we are going to be looking at, just to incorporate those questions in, and some of them I'll answer them as standalone. Definitely my intention for this is to show that there's not just a vague tunnel or a little bit of light. There is actually a lot of light. There can be a lot of light at the end of the tunnel. I'm also going to share with you, I think for me, something that I saw in the 1980s which resonated with me back then because of its comedic value. However, when I got into personal development, it kind of became one of my mantras. So I'll share with you that one. I'm sure this company did have no idea that they've inadvertently become part of my coaching. What else are we going to be looking at in terms of some of the things that you've said? Definitely providing tips and ideas and strategies. Also, one of the things that I think is going to be really kind of key and important in terms of what I'm talking about here today is how to kind of pick yourself up and move on and pick up the pieces after you've had a knockback or a setback. And last year, Rio Ferdinand did a really fantastic documentary. I'm guessing it must be on YouTube by now, talking about the loss of his wife and how grief impacted both him and his children. And it was just wonderful. And it was part of I don't know if it collaborated with Heads Together, but I know that very soon after that, Princes William and Harry also did a documentary where they talked about the loss of their mother and how that impacted them, and Harry in particular talking about the fact that he basically had stuffed a lot of those feelings down. So I'm going to talk about some of the ways that you can deal with challenging kind of situations. For me, my kind of journey with this started when I was 7 years old, where I was abused as a child right through to the age of 18. So I had some coping strategies back then, and actually some of them were pretty good, and there are some that to this day are still in my repertoire, like the dance break. So I came up with that when I was 7 or 8 years old, and I'm going to be 50 this month, so I've been using it a long time. So some of the strategies have stayed with me, some of them were a little bit dysfunctional, and I'll talk about some of those as well. But it's really and one of the things that people will often say to me is, if I kind of share a bit about my background, my story, they will often say, oh my God, I would never have believed that anything like that had ever happened to you. And I'm like, good, I'm glad that's the case, because that proves my point, that it doesn't have to define you. So I've also put some coaching questions in there as well, things for you to consider that you might have fallen into the trap of and you hadn't even realized. Because until this was brought to my attention in glorious Technicolor, when I got into personal development, I wouldn't even have thought of it. It wouldn't have even have entered my head. And actually, even if it had done, I would have refuted it and denied it and batted it away. So we're going to talk about how some of those things can insidiously creep in. And I'm doing this one as a webinar and a teleseminar because I need to use my PC. When you run a webinar, people can submit questions online. So I can't be doing Facebook Live, plus fiddling about with the back office as well. But if you did want to join us, it's free of charge. What I'll do, I should have put it in before actually, what I'll do is I'll put the link in. If you actually go to my page, scroll down 3 or 4 posts, and it's all there. it's probably actually the last but one post, if not the last post that I did. There's a photograph of me where this morning I was thinking about, okay, what am I going to do on the teleseminar tonight? And it was about a joyful life. And I was like, actually, was I actually miserable enough to be suicidal? Because it almost feels a bit alien to me now in some respects. And I've got a friend, Mandy Collins. She said whenever my Facebook lives pop up, one of her sons always smiles, because apparently I always have a really lovely smile on my face when I start my Facebook lives. I hadn't really consciously thought about it until she said it. And I was like, actually, the smile is really important. You can tell when somebody is smiling, when they're not smiling. And because I was kind of not doubting myself, but I was just a bit like, is that really true? So what I did this morning is I went and I got an old photo album, because I don't have many pictures of me when I was younger. I'm upside down. I don't have many pictures of me when I was younger, but there are a few. So I went through the album, found some old pictures of myself. Here's a couple. Let's see, hang on, what can you see? There we go, that's me. So there's some pictures of me. And as you can see, that's my attempt at a smile. And as I went through the album, there was basically, it was almost like a grimace. I was going through, like, it was just like, oh my God, this is so weird. And so when I compared it to my Facebook photos now, just even the ones that are taken completely at random, it's like, oh my God. And I likened it to Tyra Banks, where she talks about the smize, where you've got a smile that comes through. So even when people are doing a really serious pose on, if you've ever watched America's Next Top Model, there is a smize, is the smile in the eyes, the energy that comes from the inside right up to the eyes. And I thought, there's no smize in these younger photos. And if I haven't got any of the albums from childhood, they're in Barbados, but when I looked through them when I went over for my dad's funeral, as I recall, because I knew that already, but just seeing them again just so made me laugh. I'm either crying, or as we used to say back in the day, I got my mouth push up, which is like, and I look as miserable as sin in all of the photos. That's basically because I hated myself, and I didn't, why would I want to be in photos? Why would I even want to look at myself? But I went back today and thought, am I making this up? But actually, I was so miserable, I was suicidal, I can't, it's almost like, really? And then I just compared the two smiles. Well, I got loads of, I looked at 5 or 6 photos of me, and then I kind of, you know, the ones that didn't have other people in, because it's probably not fair to put other people in it, but the ones where I could kind of crop out other people, I put that up on my Facebook page, and on that you'll find a link if you wanted to pre-register for the call, and you'll also find the link if you just want to come straight into the video webinar, sorry, the online webinar. It's audio webinar, or if you wanted to dial in, but it's a USA dial-in number. But I just looked at the pictures and thought, geez, back then, even when I was smiling, it was painful. So yeah, it was kind of like a bit of a whoa, a bit of a contrast moment just looking at the photos. And what is so weird, because these were taken, you know, late teens, early 20s, it's just really nice to woo, that's a bit saucy. That's not me, by the way. Actually, let me see if I can show you that one. This was a postcard back at it, so you know, a couple of pictures of Barbados in the album just to finish it off. I remember when these photos were taken. I remember what we were doing. I remember some of the conversations we had. Just really weird. And I also remember how desperately unhappy and miserable I was as well. So today's teleseminar is to just share some tips and tools and techniques and ideas if you're not feeling your best, and if it's something that you've carried for many years, because for me, I was miserable right up until the age of 32, so that's still more than half my life at this point. And it's possible to change, it's possible to turn things around. And so this is part of the conversation. For some people it's the start of the conversation, for others it's a continuation of the conversation, in recognition of Mental Health Awareness Month. So if you want to join me, we go live in 11 minutes. I'm now going to whiz off, have some water, sit down and close my eyes for 5 minutes, having just done, you know, a load of readings for the membership group, and then we'll reconvene online. So if you're joining me, I will see you there. Really look, and you know, it's all anonymous. You can send me questions in the Q&A. I have no idea who you are, so you can talk openly, and I'll explain the logistics of how you can send your questions in once we get started with the webinar and teleseminar. So I will see you over there in 10 minutes if you are joining us, and I will drop the link. No, will I? Maybe I will. Depends if I've got 5 minutes when I've had my little meditation. But go to my page if you want to come and you're watching this in real time. Just go to my page. It's the one with the photographs of me, and if you expand on the text of that, I put all the details in there. So I'll catch you shortly. Bye bye.